I never imagined it would reach this point. But when my landlord knocked on my door, I knew I was out of options. I was 3 months behind on rent, unable to pay, and had no one to turn to. Then he made an offer. An offer I should have turned down, but didn't. The knock startled me, and my robe slipped open, exposing my bare thigh. But I was too exhausted to care. I opened the door. Mr. Harris stood there, his gaze sweeping over me, slow and deliberate. "You're 3 months behind on rent, Julia," he said. I pulled my robe tighter. "I know, Mr. Harris. I just need a little more time," I replied. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him, and the air felt heavy. His gaze lingered. "It's a shame to see a woman like you struggling," he murmured, his voice smooth. "So beautiful, yet so helpless." Heat flushed my skin. "I'll figure something out," I said. He sighed and shook his head. "Time doesn't pay the bills, sweetheart." I'd tried everything. Extra shifts, borrowing money, cutting back. Nothing worked. "Please, just a little longer," I whispered. He studied me for a moment before speaking again. "Or maybe there's another way." My stomach tightened. There it was. The unspoken offer, now out in the open. "What do you mean?" I asked. He smiled. "Come on, Julia, you know what I mean." The room seemed smaller, and my robe felt thinner. "No one has to know," he said, his voice low. "Just between us." I hesitated, my heart racing. He smirked, watching me squirm. "I can make your problems disappear." I exhaled shakily. No options, no way out, just him. Slowly I nodded. His smile deepened, and then he reached for the belt of my robe. "Good girl," he said. Mr. Harris led me into the bedroom, his grip firm but unhurried. The air felt thick against my skin as I stepped inside. The scent of aftershave and something deeper, something masculine and familiar, filled my senses. He wasted no time, standing at the edge of the bed, undoing his belt with slow, deliberate movements. The soft clink of metal sent a shiver through me. "You know what to do, sweetheart," he said. A lump formed in my throat. I hesitated, my fingers clenching into fists at my sides. His lips curved into something between amusement and control. "Don't act so surprised, Julia. You agreed, remember?" A nervous, electric warmth spread through me. I swallowed hard, then lowered myself to my knees. His fingers tangled in my hair as I leaned in, feeling his heat and scent surround me. I pressed my lips against his, moving carefully. He exhaled sharply, his fingers tightening, guiding me. The sounds he made sent an unexpected thrill through me. I shouldn't have liked it, but I did. His breathing deepened, his body tensing as he got lost in it, lost in me. A strange sense of control stirred within me. Just as I found my rhythm, he pulled away abruptly, his breathing uneven. He was barely holding back. "Get on top," he said, his voice thick with need. I obeyed, standing and moving onto the bed. My robe slipped open as I straddled him, and his hands immediately found my thighs, sliding up my skin and squeezing, as if he needed to feel every inch of me. "That's it," he murmured, his eyes locked on mine. I reached down, aligning myself with him. A sharp gasp escaped my lips as I sank onto him. He groaned, his fingers pressing into my hips. "You feel better than I imagined," he said. I ignored the warmth that spread through me at his words. This was just a transaction, but as I began to move, a deep pulse of pleasure rippled through me. My body betrayed me, responding eagerly, craving more. I bit my lip, keeping my face neutral, but inside, heat coiled, a slow burn with every movement. "Go on, Julia. Ride me like you mean it," he said, his voice strained. His grip was firm as he guided me. I did as he asked, my pace quickening, my breathing uneven. Each motion sent another wave of sensation through me, making it harder to pretend I wasn't enjoying it. He smirked, as if he could see right through my act. "You like this?" he murmured. "No," I lied, my breath catching as I moved faster. His grip tightened, his body rising to meet mine in perfect rhythm. The tension between us grew deeper and heavier. I clenched my jaw, desperate to hold back any sound that might betray me. "Keep going," he growled, his control slipping. His eyes never left mine, drinking in every movement, every unspoken reaction. I dug my nails into his chest, holding on. His pleasure built inside me, threatening to spill over. His breath hitched, his body tensing beneath me, and then with a final shudder, he exhaled. His hands locked me in place as he reached his peak. I followed seconds later, my body trembling from the intensity. But I swallowed my moans, keeping my expression unreadable as I collapsed onto him. For a moment, we just lay there, our breathing heavy, skin damp and warm. Slowly, I moved off him, sitting at the edge of the bed. I didn't speak, but deep down, I knew the truth. I had enjoyed every second of it, and so had he. I sat at the edge of the bed, pulling my robe around me, though it did little to cover what had already been revealed. My skin still tingled, my breath still unsteady. I felt his eyes on me, watching, waiting. "You surprised me, Julia," he said, his voice smooth and amused. "Didn't expect you to enjoy yourself that much." Heat flickered in my stomach, but I ignored it. "It was just a deal," I murmured. He chuckled. "Sure, if that's what you need to believe." Silence stretched between us. I should have felt ashamed, but I didn't. Not entirely. A part of me had liked it more than I was willing to admit. "I have another proposition for you," he said. I glanced at him. "What do you mean?" He leaned against the headboard, his shirt still open, his expression unreadable. "You enjoyed this. I know you did. And there are men who'd pay good money for a woman like you." I stiffened. "You're joking." "Not at all," he replied, watching me closely. "You said you're out of options, but you don't have to be. You could turn this into something lucrative." My breath hitched. "That's different. This was just..." I trailed off because I didn't have the words. "Just what?" His smirk deepened. "Just a favor. Just for fun." I turned away, my mind racing. I should have been disgusted, but I wasn't. Because he was right. I had enjoyed it. And now, the idea of doing it again, of being wanted, of being in control, of making something out of nothing, didn't seem impossible. "It's your choice," he said, standing up and buttoning his shirt. "You don't have to say yes, but if you do, I know 2 men who'd pay well for a night with you." A chill ran through me. "Not just 1, 2? I swallowed hard. It should have been an easy no, but it wasn't. How much? His smirk widened. More than you've ever made in one night. I exhale slowly, my pulse hammering in my ears. One night, two men. A choice that could change everything. I lifted my chin and nodded. All right. Mr. Harris grinned, reaching for his phone. Good girl, I'll make the call. The next evening, I stood in front of the mirror, smoothing my dress over my hips. Tight, low cut, just revealing enough. Mr. Harris had picked it out himself, along with a pair of heels that made my legs look longer than I remembered. I barely recognized myself. My hands trembled slightly as I adjusted my hair. Why was I nervous? I had already made my choice. There was no turning back now. You look perfect, Mr. Harris murmured from the doorway. His eyes roamed over me, slow and approving. They'll love you. I swallowed hard, exhaling through my nose. Who are they? Friends. Generous ones, he smirked. You give them a good night, Julia, and you'll never have to worry about rent again. A knock at the door. My breath caught. They're here. Mr. Harris's smirk deepened. Showtime, sweetheart. I turned toward the door, my heart pounding as I reached for the handle. Then I opened it. Two men stood there, eyes dark, expressions unreadable. And they were here for me. I guided them inside, my heartbeat quickening with every step, anticipation humming through me. My heels clicked quietly against the floor, the atmosphere thick with unspoken tension. They stayed close, their presence enveloping me. Two pairs of eyes, two men focused entirely on me. I had consented to this, desired it. Yet a faint unease flickered within me, mingled with a thrill of excitement. The taller one, broad-shouldered and self-assured in his movements, was the first to touch me. His grip settled at my waist, deliberate and sure, fingers pressing gently as if memorizing every contour. The other, slimmer with piercing eyes, observant and silent, lingered just behind. His breath warmed the back of my shoulder, sending an unexpected shiver down my spine. Let's handle this, the first murmured. Fingers gracing the strap of my dress, toying with the fabric as our eyes locked. Gradually, layers slipped away, fabric pooling effortlessly as hands traced my skin, discovering, admiring. Cool air brushed against me as I reached out in return, fingertips gliding over the hard lines beneath their clothes, testing their reactions. Their gazes never wavered, watching, waiting. A slow breath escaped me. There was no doubt. I intended to give them exactly what they craved. With deliberate motions, I worked through the fastenings of their belts, undoing each one at a steady pace, feeling the restrained energy beneath. Their breathing grew heavier, muscles tensing as I explored, heat radiating under my touch. A low sound came from the first man, a rough hum of approval as he tilted my chin up, his expression unreadable. Just like that, he said, his voice smooth, yet edged with something darker. A familiar fire coiled inside me. Thrilling, yet perilous, in the way they studied me. I bent my knees, movements intentional, lowering myself with both still in my grasp, warmth pressing against my skin. One hovered near my lips, a silent question. I leaned in, accepting him, savoring his heat, tracing his shape with careful attention. Above me, he sucked in a sharp breath, fingers threading through my hair, guiding me with the gentlest pressure. The second man wasn't neglected. My other hand worked him with equal focus, teasing, drawing out every reaction. His breath stuttered, fingers brushing my jaw as he watched, captivated. Their combined presence, the quiet sounds they made, the tension winding tighter, it all sent a slow, deep heat pooling in my stomach. "That's it," one growled, voice thick with satisfaction. The words sent another wave of desire through me. They let me set the pace, allowing me to lose myself in them. Then one shifted back slightly, clearing his throat as if refocusing. "Come here," he said, tone firm. "We're only beginning." I settled onto the bed, breath uneven, body alight with need. The taller man positioned himself between my legs, fingertips tracing slow circles along my inner thighs, stoking the fire. The other moved beside me, tilting my face toward him, gaze locked onto mine with quiet intensity. "Let's see how sweet you are," the first murmured, voice rich with amusement before lowering himself. His breath warmed my skin before the first touch sent a shudder through me. A gasp caught in my throat as his lips explored. His movements patient, deliberate. My fingers twisted into the sheets as each caress sent another jolt of pleasure through me. The second man leaned in, lips meeting mine, before deepening the kiss, his mouth opening against me. I welcomed him, letting his warmth swallow my muffled sounds as pleasure mounted between us. They moved in perfect sync. One, unraveling me with his mouth, the other pulling me deeper into the kiss, fingers tangled in my hair. "So perfect," one breathed, admiration lacing his words. I should have felt nervous, but I didn't. I craved more, and they knew it. They guided me effortlessly, shifting me into place as if they understood exactly what I needed. Now on my hands and knees, body still trembling from their touch. The second man, the one who had waited so patiently, settled behind me, hand firm on my waist. "Ready for more?" he asked, voice knowing. I barely had time to answer before he pressed forward, a slow, relentless pressure that sent heat spiraling through me. My breath hitched, fingers clenching the sheets as I adjusted. He groaned softly, grip anchoring me, movement steady, as if savoring every second. The first man moved in front, fingers tracing my jaw, urging me to look up. "Let me feel you," he murmured. I parted my lips, taking him in, his heat against me, our breaths mingling. "Just like that," he whispered, thumb brushing my cheek, fingers tightening in my hair. They moved together, one keeping my body steady, the other holding my focus. A quiet moan escaped me, the vibrations drawing a sharp inhale from the man in front. Behind me, the second man shifted, his rhythm fluid, pulling another gasp from me as pleasure coiled deep inside. "You love this, don't you?" one teased, voice knowing. I whimpered, my body betraying me. I did. Every second of it. They weren't done. They lifted me, shifting me effortlessly into a new position, placing me exactly where they wanted. Now, atop the first man, his hands gripped my hips, gaze meeting mine with quiet satisfaction. "Show me how much you want this," he murmured, grip tightening just enough to guide me. A slow breath left me as I sank onto him, warmth building, the stretch sending another shiver through me. His head fell back, a groan slipping free as I moved. But the second man wasn't finished. His touch teased first, fingers tracing my back, waiting for my response. A sharp exhale left me, anticipation curling in my stomach. "Take your time," he murmured against my ear. I'll guide you. I exhaled, body adjusting gradually as he pressed forward. Heat flared between us, bodies moving in perfect rhythm. That's it, one groaned. Just like that. I didn't know who spoke. I was too consumed, overwhelmed by their synchronized movements, their touch, their breath keeping pace with mine. They worked together, one steadying me, the other pressing closer, each motion controlled, precise. Pressure built, spreading through me in waves, my breathing ragged as pleasure coiled tighter. You're incredible, one said, voice rough with awe. Look at her, the other whispered, fingers skimming my spine, making me shiver. I was lost in it, completely. The tension peaked, a final deep pull that shattered me, warmth crashing through my body. Beneath me, a sharp inhale, fingers digging into my skin as his rhythm faltered. Behind me, a low groan, his grip firm as he followed. The moment stretched, endless and breathless, before fading into warmth. The room fell silent, only our slowing breaths filling the air. In the end, I never thought I'd enjoy it. Never imagined I'd crave more. But now I can't stop thinking about it. Ava stretched out with a deep sigh, luxuriating before standing up. The atmosphere changed, and I blinked at her, dazed and breathless. She observed me with a quiet amusement, then reached for the first button of her blouse. Well, she murmured, sliding the fabric off her shoulders, a slow, knowing smile forming on her lips. I suppose I shouldn't just sit and watch. If I don't feel a real man's hands on me soon, I might just lose my mind. The words slipped out before I could stop them. Too raw, too desperate. But after 3 years of frustration, 2 glasses of wine, and 0 exciting nights, I wasn't about to pretend anymore. Ava almost choked on her drink, then laughed. Damn, that bad? I groaned, shifting in my seat. Worse. My ex, let's just say he wasn't exactly thrilling, and now I thought being single would be fun. Turns out it's just a series of bad dates and worse options. Ava smirked. So, what's stopping you from just picking someone? I let out a bitter laugh. Oh, sure. Let me just grab the nearest guy and hope he's worth it. The truth was, I didn't want just anyone. I wanted to feel desired again. Ava studied me for a moment, then exhaled through her nose like she had just made a decision. You know, I think I have a solution. I narrowed my eyes. If you're about to suggest some app full of creeps, I swear, nope. She cut me off smoothly. Then, with a slow sip of wine and a smirk that sent a chill down my spine, she said, You should borrow my husband. I blinked, convinced I had misheard. I'm sorry, what? She shrugged, completely unfazed. You heard me. I stared at her, waiting for her to laugh, smirk, or say something that would show this was a joke. But she just sipped her wine, as though what she'd said wasn't insane. You heard me? She repeated, her voice calm and casual. I let out a nervous laugh. You can't be serious. Why not? She asked. Because that's your husband. I shook my head. Do I really have to explain why that's insane? Ava leaned in, her eyes sparkling with amusement. I think you're trying a little too hard to sound shocked. You weren't really offended by the idea. You were just surprised. Obviously, I'm surprised. My voice was higher than I'd intended. Who says something like that? A good friend, she smirked. One who actually cares about your suffering. I groaned, pressing a hand to my forehead. You make it sound like I'm some tragic case. You said it yourself. You're miserable. Ava tilted her head, studying me like she already knew how this conversation would end. And you deserve better. I swallowed hard. Even if I was crazy enough to consider this, which I'm not. What about him? Does he even know you're saying this? Eva's smirk widened. Oh, honey, do you really think I make offers like this without checking first? A strange heat curled in my stomach. Wait, you mean... She took another slow sip of wine, like she was savoring my reaction. I told him earlier. He didn't exactly complain. A pulse of electricity ran through me. I didn't know what I was expecting, but the idea that her husband was already on board. Oh my God, I breathed. Ava grinned. Told you, he's an incredible man. And trust me, he knows how to take care of a woman. I'd never offer you anything less than the best. My mouth went dry. She put down her glass and leaned in, her voice dropping to something softer, smoother. So tell me the truth. If you weren't overthinking it, if you just let yourself feel what you want, would you say yes? I should have laughed. I should have changed the subject. I should have said no. But I didn't, because deep down, I already knew the answer. Ava must have seen it in my face, because she exhaled, satisfied. Thought so. I forced myself to breathe. This is insane. Maybe, but doesn't it sound exciting? She replied. I didn't answer. Ava watched me closely, her finger hovering over her phone. Last chance. Tell me to stop, and I will. Silence. I parted my lips, ready to say something, anything, but nothing came out. Ava smirked and tapped the screen. A single message, "Come now," was sent with a quiet ping. She met my gaze and smiled. He's on his way. It didn't take long for him to arrive. A knock at the door, a slow exhale from Eva. My pulse raced. She stood, smoothing her dress nervously. I swallowed and nodded. She smiled, like she expected that, then opened the door. There he was, tall, confident, unshaken by what was about to happen. Ava smirked. You're early. Her husband stepped inside, his eyes already on me. Not in a rushed way, not in an obvious way, but in a way that told me he knew. You're even prettier than she said. My stomach flipped. Ava laughed, looping an arm around his. Told you. He gave me a slow, deliberate, once over. Not too obvious, but I felt it. So this is her, he said. This is her. Eva confirmed. His lips curved slightly. Not a smirk, not a smile, just approval. Eva turned to me and extended a hand. Shall we? My breath caught. This was it. The last moment to walk away. The last moment to pretend I hadn't already made up my mind. I didn't take it. I didn't have to. Before I could decide, he reached for my other hand. And just like that, we went together. The moment the door shut behind us, his hands were on me. No hesitation, no slow build-up, no uncertainty, just raw heat. His mouth claimed mine instantly, deep and unrelenting, sending a rush of sensation through me. Electric, breath-stealing, intoxicating. I melted into him, my body pressing against his as his hands roamed my back. Firm, claiming, deliberate. Ava's soft laugh echoed behind me. Now that's better, she murmured, her voice rich with amusement. Then, her hands glided over my shoulders, a delicate contrast to his firm grip. A shiver ran through me. I barely had time to react before she reached for the straps of my dress, slipping them down inch by inch. The warmth of his breath against my skin, the slow, teasing pressure of Ava's touch. I was completely surrounded, completely lost in it, and I didn't want it to stop. The dress slid down to my waist, and Eva exhaled softly, her voice a silky thread against my ear. "You're stunning like this," she whispered. His lips moved along my collarbone, deliberate, steady, still nervous. Ava murmured. I didn't answer. I couldn't, not when his hands settled on my waist, confident, guiding me backward. I sank onto the mattress, breath uneven, pulse racing. He followed, moving with unshaken assurance, his presence filling every part of my awareness. Ava sighed, stepping away. I barely registered it, until I heard the soft rustle of fabric as she settled onto the couch nearby. "Go on, baby," she purred, her voice smooth and teasing. Let her feel what I already know. A deep sound rumbled in his chest, and then his touch drifted lower, trailing heat in its wake. My breath caught. A wave of sensation rolled through me, my body responding instinctively. His hands held me steady, firm yet measured, guiding me deeper into the moment. Ava hummed in approval. "Oh, sweetheart," she murmured, her fingers tracing along my arm. "Feather light, but electric. You should see yourself right now." Heat flushed through me. I should have been thinking. I wasn't. I was completely lost in it. His touch, his presence, the way Ava's voice sent a fresh thrill through me. Ava leaned forward slightly, her fingertips ghosting over my skin in slow, lazy circles. "See?" she whispered. "I told you he was good." I barely heard her. I couldn't focus on anything but the slow, spiraling pleasure unraveling me. Ava sighed and stretched luxuriously before rising to her feet. The air shifted again. I blinked up at her, dazed and breathless. She watched me with quiet amusement, then reached for the first button of her blouse. "Well," she murmured, slipping the fabric from her shoulders, a slow, knowing smile curving her lips. "I suppose it's time I joined the fun." Ava's blouse slid from her shoulders, the fabric gliding down in a slow, deliberate motion. She moved toward me, her steps unhurried, her presence undeniable. My breath quickened, unsteady, pulse hammering beneath my skin. Her fingers found my arms, a feather-light trace from my shoulders down to my wrists, sending a new kind of thrill through me. "She's ready," Eva murmured, her voice a slow, knowing promise. Her husband exhaled deeply, his hands settling against my waist, steady and sure. The moment stretched thick with unspoken understanding. I barely registered the way my fingers curled into him, needing something to hold on to. Then, everything shifted. A wave of sensation rolled through me, stealing the air from my lungs. Ava's breath warmed my ear, her voice soft but insistent. "That's it," she whispered. "Let it happen." His hands guided me, leading me deeper into the moment, slow and unrelenting. I felt completely taken, surrounded. Ava's fingertips traced over my arm. His presence pressed in, anchoring me in something. I could no longer fight the intensity. It built too quickly, every movement sending waves of warmth through me. Ava's lips brushed against my jaw, her touch firm and purposeful. "Breathe, sweetheart," she murmured. "Feel every second of it." I trembled under her, my body tightening, coiling. The pressure rose, becoming sharper and higher with every movement. Each motion was smooth and controlled, pushing me closer to something unavoidable. Ava's mouth traced along my collarbone, her touch amplifying every feeling. "You're stunning like this," she whispered. I could barely hear her, completely lost in the sensation. The warmth, the pull, the steady rhythm urging me forward. I instinctively followed it, fully immersed in the moment, consumed by it. Ava's lips hovered near my ear, her voice teasing and breathless. "Let go," I gasped, shuddering, and then her fingers tightened around mine, grounding me as I broke apart. The moment hit in waves, deep, endless, overwhelming. A soft sound escaped me, the release unraveling every bit of control I had left. His grip tightened, pulling out the last of it. Intense and all-consuming. Ava's hand stayed on mine, steadying me as I slowly descended from the peak. "That's it," she whispered, pressing a lingering kiss to my temple. Everything collapsed into warmth, into breathless stillness. The aftershocks continued, pulsing softly through me. I sank into the feeling, weightless, completely undone. Eva sighed, a lazy, satisfied sound. Her fingers remained tangled with mine. The silence stretched, heavy and warm, thick with the remnants of everything that had just happened. Her nails grazed my skin, a slow, teasing afterthought. A soft laugh escaped her. "Told you we'd take care of you." I couldn't move, couldn't even form a thought. I just breathed, utterly undone, completely claimed. Most people would decline an offer like this. But let's be honest. It's not as simple as it seems.